Hello, my name's Alistair Down from my rucksackandI.com, and today I'm in a little woodland in the heart of Oxfordshire. I was hoping to get down to the coast this weekend to do some coastal walking and wild camping, but unfortunately that hasn't happened. So I thought, what can I do instead? And I thought what I'll look at is fire lighting, because when I do some of my long distance walks, it's not all about wild camping on top of the mountains. Sometimes I like to sort of do some of the trails through the forest and the woodland and wild camp in the woodland. And when I do that, it's good to get a fire going of an evening, A, to be able to cook on, B, it's nice just to sit there and watch the flames flicker. If it's a cold day, it's nice to keep warm beside it. There's many reasons for having a fire. So I thought what I'd do is I'll show you how I go about preparing and setting a fire. Whilst I'm out on the trail, I generally use my fire steel, which I keep in my cooking equipment, and I just thought it would be good to share those skills with you. There's so many different ways of doing it, but this is the way that I do it. So let's make a start, and I'll show you what I do. There's an extra couple of pieces of equipment that I would carry with me if I knew that the walk that I was going to be doing entailed going through a woodland or a forest where I might wild camp and get a fire going. And those two items are the Bacco Laplander folding saw. It's quite nice and light, fits in my rucksack really easy. Little button press and that just locks into place. So it's a good size, got a nice sized blade, it's sharp, cuts through the wood really easy, and it really is a great piece of kit. So that's that. And then on top of that I carry a sheath knife. The little buck knife that I would normally carry that I showed you in my last kit list isn't really man enough for the feathering of the wood and that sort of thing. So I just carry a little knife. It's not huge, but it's nice and sharp, it's nice and solid. A Damascus steel blade, so it never rusts, and that really does help me out. So they're the two extra pieces of kit that I would carry on top of the normal list that I have. What we're looking for to make a fire is to start with some tinder, very fine or very dry, something that's going to be able to catch light easy from our fire steel, which is going to create the initial flame, and then we just need to start adding the kindling, very small matchstick size pieces of timber, and just gradually getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as the flames and the heat in the fire gets more intense, then we can start adding larger logs to it. So what we need to do first is really collect all of our tinder, our kindling, our branches, our twigs, so that once we've got it all there, we can make a start, we can get the ignition going, and then we can just keep adding our wood to it. So it's already beside us, and then we can just keep adding it on until it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, till we're at a point where we can just leave it be. So first thing we need to do is go and find our tinder, and what I generally tend to use here in the UK is the birch tree, the silver birch tree. It has a resin running through it, so once it catches, it tends to keep burning for a good time, and that enables us to be able to add our bits on and get going. So when we're looking for a silver birch tree, there's a number of things we can get off of that. So let's go and find one and see what we can do. This is the silver birch tree, and as you can see, the reason it's called a silver birch is because it is very silvery in colour. So it's quite obvious as to which tree it is if you see them in the woodland. Once you know it, it's really easy to spot, and it's really good to know. So what we're looking for, and I'll try and get a bit closer here, is, I don't know if you can see there, all the little flaky bits of the bark of the tree, okay? And that's what we're going to use to start with. So what we need to do is collect all of that as much as we can, and that will take our initial spark off of our fire steel and enable us to get the fire going. So what I'm going to do now is collect a load of that, and I'll show you that once I've done it. So all I'm doing is just peeling off the outer bark off of the edge of the tree. This doesn't harm the tree in any way, it's only shedding it anyway, and you will see it just peels off nice and easy. All we want to do is collect a good amount of that, just like really fine paper. Pop it into your pocket. There we go, that should be enough to get us going. Once we've collected the bark of the tree, which is what's going to take our initial spark and help to create the fire, what we need to do then really is start collecting the very fine pieces of wood. And what I tend to look for, and I don't know if you can see it here in this tree, is there's lots of dead wood, fallen dead wood. Okay, and this is just broken off naturally. And again, this has still got the resin in. It's dried out because it's dead, it's dried out, there's no moisture inside it. So if we go around into all of the little trees, all the little birch trees, and just collect as much of this as we can, then that's going to help us. That's our next stage. That's what's going to help to get the fire really going. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to have a wander around and collect as much of this as I can. I spent a few minutes just walking around all the different birch trees, and as you can see, I've got quite a good stack now of finer twigs, really some quite fine. And this is going to be our second stage. So birch bark we've got in my pocket, that's our first stage, and our kindling is the second stage. You want to avoid picking it up off of the forest floor if you can, only because it's likely to be damp. I mean, if you had a really nice dry spell, then it doesn't matter, but generally the ground is damp, and the last thing you want is for the wood to be damp. So if you can get it out of the, you know, what's fallen and is still entangled in the tree, then that's the best to go. Right, so now that we've got that, what I'm going to be looking at now is getting some slightly bigger stuff. And I'm lucky here where I am. It's a beech wood that I'm in, and there's a lot of fallen, I'll show you over here, there's a lot of fallen timber, and a lot of that, as you can see, is off of the ground. So what I'm going to do is cut some of that, break some of that off, and I'm going to use that for my third stage, which is my slightly bigger stage. So I'm just going to collect some of that now. As you can see, what I've now got is a selection of fine birch twigs, and then this is off of that dead beech. I've got some slightly bigger stuff here, and then some slightly bigger stuff here. That's as far as I'll go for now. I mean, obviously I would go and collect even thicker stuff, but this is really only a demonstration purpose to show you, you know, what's required. So kindling I have in my pocket, sorry, tinder I have in my pocket, and then the finer kindling there, going up to slightly bigger and slightly bigger again. Okay, so what I've done now is I've just cleared a small area of all of the leaves and the debris that's on the floor there, because obviously what I don't want to be doing is setting fire to the whole woodland. So it's important that we clear an area really back to the soil if you can, because obviously then we know that the fire is not going to spread. Now once you get back to that stage, obviously the soil underneath, you can see it is wet, it's really quite damp. So what I do there is I've got some of these that I cut, and all I'm going to do is create a bed, really, just to be able to lift our tinder off of the floor, just so that it stays nice and dry. Okay, so again, this is dead fallen wood, and that's just going to help to lift it off. We can put our tinder on there, and then we can get our fire going. It also allows us just to get a little bit of air underneath it, because obviously we need the oxygen to be able to get the fire going. I have what's called the fire triangle, and that's really the three elements of what's needed to create fire. One is heat source, two is fuel, and three is oxygen. So as long as you've got all three of those elements, then you've got a good chance that you're going to get a fire going. What I've done is I've broken up some of the finer pieces of the birch here, really fine, and then some slightly bigger, and then I can go with this afterwards to get it on. So all we need to do is get our birch bark out. You'll be surprised how quickly this burns off. So hopefully I've got enough here. The more you can get, the better, and the less windy the day you can get, the better. Okay, and what this should do, we should be able to light this straight from the fire still. So I'm just sitting here to keep the wind off a little bit. Let's just wait for a moment where it's not quite so windy. I'm just showering the sparks. And eventually one will take. There we go. And then what we want to do is just get once the resin catches in that, then that'll help just to keep it all going. You can probably hear it fizzing. You need to keep the air. It really is windy today. See why you need to gather the fuel at the beginning, because the last you don't have enough time to be running around afterwards gathering it all up, because you really do need to work at just keeping it alight. You can see the wind's blowing it through it. You don't want to suffocate it. It needs to have air to be able to breathe, but it doesn't need too much. And then you just want to gradually start building it bigger and bigger, getting the branches on. But it's important for it to be dry, because if you put a wet wood on, it'll just go out. You just have to keep feeding it. Now you can understand why you've got to have so much wood prepped before you even start, because once you get that initial flame, you really want to try and keep it going. See, now I'm just starting to get the sticks slightly bigger, slightly thicker. There's some warmth in that now. You can see how the wind's swirling around today, trying to catch me out. Okay, that's well and truly alight now. That's not going to go out. But you can see the critical part is right at the very beginning. Once you've got that spark onto that birch bark and that starts to take, you really do have to have the really fine pieces to go on top, because it has to transfer from the tinder to the kindling. So if you have those too big, then there's not enough warmth and enough length of it to be able to catch those. So you really do need the fine pieces initially, and then just gradually get bigger and bigger and bigger once that warmth and that heat's in. And now that is well and truly alight. And I can just gradually start making them bigger. And what I tend to do is I just create like a triangle where they sit in, like that, and that allows the air to come up underneath in between. Okay, so if you're building it almost like a teepee, like that, and then they can just start to catch on the top of there. That one doesn't want to stay. And that's it. From that point on, you can just keep adding them and making them bigger and bigger. I'll just get rid of these last few bits that I've collected here. There's a good amount of warmth. You don't need to be too big, because at the end of the day, if you're going to cook a bit of dinner, you're going to get a fire, you're going to brew on the go. It's really just about having something in the woodland. There's something special about a fire when you're wild camping, especially once it gets dark and you can just sit there and watch the flames flickering. It's really quite spiritual, quite, I suppose it takes us back to our caveman days maybe, where we had nothing else to do but sit and watch the fire in the evening. But I find it very special and I enjoy it. And there we go. As you can see, that's really well and truly alight now. That will burn nicely. So what I'll do is I'll let that burn down, and then I'll show you what we do, obviously in order to be able to put that out and to put the woodland back to how it was, because obviously when we leave here we want to leave with no trace. So I'll enjoy that for a while and I'll come back to you shortly. So whilst I'm just waiting for the fire to burn down a little bit, I just thought I'd show you the difference between, or a way of telling the difference between live wood and dead wood, because ideally you want to be using dead wood for your fire, just because all the moisture is already gone from it. It's kind of to the trees themselves. You don't want to be going around cutting down live trees to burn them for your fire. You really want to be trying to get the wood that's already dead. So the easiest way to find out, if you take your knife, if you cut down through the bark of the dead wood, and you'll see that the wood is here and it's all just brown, all between the bark and the inner, it's all brown. Okay, so you can see there that that is dead. If you were to do that on the live, I'll just do a little bit here just to show you. Probably I'll just take a piece out of here. Okay, when you cut down, so you can see that there, and what you've got is you've got a much lighter inner, but you've got this very light green ring around, and that's because this is still alive. So this is the live one and this is the dead one. Okay, and that's the easiest way to tell the difference, and that's not going to hurt the tree. If it's live, leave it alone, move on, find another piece. It's the dead wood that you're looking for. So I've spread the fire out a little bit just in order to let it go down. Obviously if you've had it in the evening, when you wake up in the morning, it's going to be nearly dead anyway. So all we need to do is make sure that it's definitely out. I've got a flask of water here. Obviously you'll have water on you in the morning, just to put it out, and just literally pour over and just make sure that everything is definitely out. Because the last thing we need to be doing is walking away and then it's setting fire, relighting after we've gone. And setting fire to the woodland once we've left. And just give it a good mix up, just to make sure that all of those embers are in there. It's nice and wet in there, look. Okay, give it a good mash up to make sure that they're definitely all out. Okay, you can see now. That's good. Get some of the bigger ones, just give them a good. Make sure there's nothing that's still going to remain alight on there. Obviously if you're next to a stream or a pond or a water source of any description, then it's going to be really easy just to keep adding water to it to make sure that it is out. But that is definitely well and truly out now. Okay, so once it's out like that, then literally all we want to do is throw bits off in different directions just to disperse it around the forest, and then I can feel that that's out, and we'll just flick that all around. That'll all blend back in with the woodland. And then once that's all gone, then we can recover the area with leaves, debris. And then from there, you'd never know we've been. So that sort of covers the one technique of fire lighting. Ideal on a dry day. You saw we collected the birch bark, which became our tinder. We then collected the really fine, dead, free-hanging bits of birch, twigs, branches. Started off with the really fine. Gathered a load of other wood. There's a lot of dead wood, a lot of beech wood lying around here that's all sticking up in the air, so you saw me getting all that together, gathering that and bringing it together. I cleared an area, we put down the little bed just to get it off the damp soil, lit it, gradually got bigger and bigger and bigger till we had a lovely fire going. And at the end, make sure that it's out, spread it around and go back to leaving no trace, because that's the important thing. We don't want to spoil it, we don't want to leave fires around for other people. It's important that we make it look like nobody has ever been here. Okay, so in a future video I'll cover another fire lighting technique, maybe using feather sticks and things when it's raining, how to be able to get to the dry wood when everything's soaking wet, etc, etc. But that's a video for another day. So from me, Alistair Down, I really do appreciate you watching the videos and subscribing. If you've got any comments or any questions, feel free to send them over, and I'll always try and get back to everybody as soon as I can. But I really appreciate you watching, and all I've got to say is enjoy the walking, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.